This podcast is sponsored by Saltworks Security. For almost 10 years, Saltworks has delivered world-class application security services and products designed to help enterprises secure their applications from policy to production in an ever-changing security landscape. They're the makers of SaltMiner, an application security management platform designed by security professionals for security professionals. SaltMiner aggregates and normalizes the issues found by many different solutions and enriches that data with business context. SaltMiner gives team members from the C-suite, security, and development teams the ability to manage their application security program through customizable views. The Saltworks SaltMiner Community Edition is a free penetration testing management and delivery application. It provides teams with custom reporting for potentially thousands of end users, red team support, and the ability to manage new and retesting of engagements. SaltMiner Community Edition also allows teams to enforce both testing methodologies and custom vulnerability databases for consistency in engagement delivery. Check them out today at saltworks.io.
Hey everybody, this is the SMC Journal Podcast, the show where we talk about software engineering in today's modern IT. We talk about operational stuff like performance, security, observability, reliability, SRE topics. Sometimes we delve into developer and even hardware. Anything that makes the end user experience better, the use of software engineering and engineering in general. That's what this show is about. I'm Scott Moore, your host, and thank you for joining me. Today's topic is around ransomware attacks. Now, we know that ransomware attacks are actually on the increase and have been for the past several years. This is a problem, and many companies want to know, what can we do to mitigate these attacks? Just recently, I wanted to employ the service of a company and could not use their service, and it was a critical service simply because they had a ransomware attack, had to shut down all of their systems, and they were down for more than a week, losing a lot of revenue for their company. So it made me take note of this. So I started looking up some of the recent articles about ransomware attacks so that I could share this stuff with you. And I also want to bring on a guest today from Saltworks Security that can help you understand what you can do to mitigate these attacks that might be being attempted on your organization even as we speak. So let's take a look at a couple of the articles that I found. This first report is the Thales Data Threat Report for 2023 that was released in April of 2023 in conjunction with 451 Research, showing that nearly half of IT professionals surveyed in this report, of 3,000 people in 18 countries, are reporting that ransomware attacks are definitely on the increase, and that at least 37% of them have had a data breach in the last 12 months. 22% report that their organization has been a victim of a ransomware attack within the last year as well. The only good news that I found from this report was that the severity of those ransomware attacks does not seem to be as bad today. However, I still think we're probably going to see a few large ones in the future that we haven't planned on seeing that large of scale of an attack. 51% of enterprises do not have a formal ransomware plan. And the primary cause, or more than half of the reasons why there was a data breach, was identified as human error being the primary cause. According to this article from Black Fog, they're asking the question, why are ransomware attacks on the rise? And they basically talk about how we've changed the way that we work. That there are easier access to these tools, and it's just making it much easier for people to get access to people's systems. And there are always new vulnerabilities out there to be exploited, and people don't always keep up on these things. So those are just a few of the reasons, but there's bigger cost when a ransomware attack occurs these days because it's so easy to exploit that in the news. In other words, people know about it more, and there's a bigger reputational cost associated with a ransomware attack. So if you are concerned now about a ransomware attack, you should be. And that's why I'm going to bring on my guest from Saltworks Security. It's Ron Foster. He's been on the show with us before. Ron, thanks for being on the show. I think most people now know who you are. I'm just going to come out and ask you, why are ransomware attacks on the rise, and what's really contributing to this?
Thanks for having me on, man. It's always great to be here, talking about the ways that the world is being broken. Ransomware, man, COVID contributes a lot to this because COVID ushered in a change in behavior, and attackers always like attack vectors that are easy. And working from home allowed people to take their laptops home. We saw a lot of businesses struggle with how do we force security on people in their homes. And, we all got those trainings, where we don't click on things that you get in your email and how to report them to IT. And we probably hate those types of things. Even as security folks, we have to go through those trainings. And they're important because that's a big attack vector for ransomware. And it's email. And, trying to get you to click on that thing, which downloads the software that encrypts everything on your computer, if it's important data, then we have a problem. And if you're a privileged user, which may have access to cloud resources or administrator rights over machines, and that software is propagated to those instances, we have even bigger problems. So, what's contributing to it? Changes in behavior. I mean, in all honesty, people working from home, all that type of stuff, and that's allowed it to really just ramp up, and that's why it's on the rise, as well as ease of use for the bad guys. I mean, we have literally networks of people out there, of services that will allow you to run ransomware attacks. So it's pretty crazy stuff.
So for those who might not know, what does the typical ransomware attack look like from its origination? What kind of things would they do, or what would you see?
What does it look like? I'd say typical these days is going to be using some type of kit. There's lots of kits out there these days, and basically it's just an exploit kit. I mean, that's really what they're going to be using. There's water hole attacks, which is basically, you think about the water hole. This is where we're all drinking from all the time. So it's a site or an application that, a lot of people are using in our business sector, and they'll infect that with malware or with an exploit kit. And you'll click on that and you'll download it, and then it executes. There's also something they call malvertising, which is where you get into email. So they're going to send you a phishing email, the standard type of stuff that we're always warned about in our trainings, and you click on the thing and it downloads the exploit kit and then executes it on your machine. How is it run start to finish? These days, most of the time, it's going to be ran through, as a service, and there's Hive, there's DarkSide, there's Revil, there's all types of basically groups out there. Revil is one, Pinchy Spider, so huge ransom demands. I mean, I think they did like $10 million, in profits. Pinchy Spider as a group, they'll say, hey, we'll sell you this rootkit. We'll even manage it for you. We have the back-end servers that handles all of the encryption, the key exchanges, all that type of stuff. And, we'll take a 40% cut of whatever you get. So it is truly a mafia level stuff, on the internet. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff when you think about it. So that's what a typical attack looks like. And it will encrypt all the data in your drive. They're usually going to say, hey, we want you to pay up to get your data unencrypted. And it's usually not an exorbitant amount unless they know they can charge you an exorbitant amount. If it's a person and you click on some crazy site, that has an exploit kit in it, it's $300 or $400, and they're probably going to want you to pay in Bitcoin or something that's not easily traceable. And if it's like all your files of all your kids, is it worth $300 or $400? Probably so. You're probably going to pay it, and that kind of leads us to why backups are so important, even for home people. If you're just a regular old person at home watching this, back up your stuff. Back it up to multiple places. Back it up to local disk. Back it up to the cloud. Backup. It's really important to back that stuff up.
Okay, so how can companies mitigate the threat of ransomware, like as much as possible? Are there specific things that they can do or steps that they can take to try to minimize the impact?
There is quite a bit that we can do. I mean, the biggest issue is we have users, and users can do dumb stuff. And that's why we all have jobs. But in reality, I mean, there's things that we can purchase to help, such as intrusion detection systems, that training that we've mentioned already in our previous questions. That's a big thing that we can do. There's also, backups. I mentioned that a little earlier. If you have your data backed up, and it was backed up last night, and we get, a rootkit or, an exploit kit executed today, and we can, if we're a big business, we can start weighing the cost of the risk of just rolling back to our backup, or what data have we generated in that short of a period that may be unrecoverable. Is it worth paying the fine, or can we just revert back to a snapshot or a backup? So that's a thing, and we need to make sure we're making those backups in different places. It's really funny. I was reading an article the other day about how people are buying tape robots again. Because we see these exploit kits actually hitting cloud resources too. So backup to the cloud, it's great, but you may want to consider, local storage backups now as well. And I found it really interesting that people are literally investing in tape robots again. You also want to make sure that, we actually have, a program in place, that there, a disaster recovery plan, DR plans, where we're testing all that stuff. We're testing our failovers, we're testing our backups, we're testing all that stuff regularly. So we need to make sure that from a DR strategy, we have all that taken care of. Patching, we need to make sure our patch program, everything's up to date, because it may have some stuff to mitigate some of the rootkits that are out there. We also want to segment our network. So if this portion of our network does get, this attack executed against it, it doesn't bleed over into other areas of our network. So we want to make sure we have very good segmentation and create those layers. And, and then once again, just anything we can do for anti-phishing protection, or, preventing people from visiting those waterhole sites. Once our IDS detects that there's a potential issue with that site, or antivirus or whatever, all those types of things. So those are all things from a base strategy perspective that we can do to really help protect our business from this stuff. But just a few points there.
So let's talk a minute about an IDS, an intrusion detection system. What is it, and how does that work?
I mentioned earlier, about endpoint protection as one of our strategies, and it's really important, and IDSs are one of those pieces of that endpoint protection. And you basically have two major types. You've got a network and host, but they both do similar things. Whereas they're looking for patterns. They're looking for patterns of either things that are out of the norm or things that are known to be attacks. Whether they match signatures of traffic on the network side that may be used by exploit kits, or in host versions, they're snapshotting the files on your file system, and when it detects changes that are not normal, it can send off all the alarms and bells and whistles. So both types need to be used. You need to be monitoring your network traffic, as well as you need to be monitoring local file systems, and IDSs will do both of that. So you need to have both those types of systems in place. And then once those alarms are off and they start getting triggered, then that's where you as a company will need to look at your incident response plan and look at and exercise your incident response. And that's where as a company, it's really important to engage in tabletop exercises so that when an incident takes place, how you're going to respond to it. So
Ron, how does Saltworks help their clients? Maybe you've been contacted about somebody's had a possible ransomware attack. How do you help them?
The first thing we're going to do is help you not to panic, because when you get a customer call from a customer who has any type of incident, no matter what it is, that's the first thing is that we've had this incident, the sky is falling, how do we handle this? So the first thing is just to really help them not to panic, and just help them just sit down, relax, and let's walk through some basic steps. And with ransomware, we do have some basic things to look at. I mean, we can first start looking at, your systems themselves, so which systems, which parts of the network were affected. Let's make sure those are isolated so that, we don't see any spread anywhere else. Help identify which variant of the ransomware was used, so we can help formulate a plan of, are there any mitigation steps where we could possibly do decryption, or is it a situation where we've got to look at backups, which brings us to another thing. Help you look at your backups, help figure out the integrity of your backups, start looking at any initial access that was made. Just look at the scope, look at all affected systems, things of that nature. I mean, and also discern, really the big thing that you're probably worried about, was my data exfiltrated? So let's look at egress, and let's look at, what happened there. So we can help you with all that, and that's really where we excel. We just want you not to panic and just help you figure out the pieces. So that's just kind of where we're at and what we do. As a company, our main thing is we just want to be there for our customers. We want to help our customers. I mean, we want to be that trusted partner. So,
Ron, thanks so much for being on the show today. We appreciate you being here, and it's been great. I also want to go back and just review real quickly an article that I found online that goes through 7 steps to help you mitigate what to do with a ransomware attack. Found this article on the Center for Internet Security about 7 steps to help you prevent and limit the impact of ransomware. One of the main things is make sure that you have thoughtfully considered how you're going to back up your systems, and make sure you have backups, that you've tested the backups to make sure that they actually work, and you're backing up your system to something that's detached from your system. That's what we call out of band or stored offline, that is safe, and make sure that that backup is not infected before you try to roll back to it. Make sure, number 2, that you have a plan and a policy in place. Remember, more than half of organizations don't have a ransomware plan in place. Go ahead and begin thinking about that now and putting it together. Third, look at your port settings and make sure that you don't have obvious ports open, like those for remote desktop protocol, port 3389, server message block, SMB, port 445, open on systems that should never have those open. Number 4, harden your endpoints, making sure that you have kept security in mind. The general rule is deny all and then start allowing the exceptions. 5th, keep systems up to date. Make sure that your operating systems are patched. All applications have the latest version. Anytime there is a new release of something or a patch, make sure that you have some kind of a lab or something that can test these patches. And make sure that it's not going to do other types of, introduce other defects and bugs in your system, but you want to keep them as up to date as possible, and make sure that they're rolling out to all the individual desktops and laptops that are in your corporate environment. 6, make sure that your team has been trained on this, and that includes not only the back-end people that administrate these systems, but also the users. They know what to look for when there's a suspicious email, not to click on any link that's in any email, because there are going to be things that slip through the cracks, and each individual end user needs to also take some level of responsibility of being very cautious on that side. So they need some training on how to just not do the stupid stuff. Number 7, implement an IDS. We talked about that in the video today, but an intrusion detection system, and one that analyzes traffic real time and can try to filter out as much real time as possible is definitely the way to go. You can look online to find different IDS systems. That's a general 7-step procedure on how to start controlling and preventing the impact of ransomware attacks. Has your organization been the victim of a ransomware attack, or do you have some feedback for me that you'd like to discuss about this? You'd like to see other topics like this on the show? Let me know. I'd like to hear your feedback. You can reach me very easily on most social media platforms. You can also email me at my email, heyscott@smcjournal.com. Would love to hear from you, and maybe there's another follow-up show that we can do about this. Are there other areas in the security realm that you'd like for me to discuss on the show? I'd be happy to do that. So for this episode of the SMC Journal podcast, this is Scott Moore saying thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.